Hi, everybody. Good morning. We are here on Fridays with Sue and Steph. And what does your mug say, Steph?
Oh, I love you to the mountains and back.
Oh, in Dan's family, it's the moon and back.
I think it's a take on that.
Oh, is that a typical thing, moon and back?
Yeah.
And mountains is because you love to hike?
Yeah.
Was it customized or was it
I don't know. It was a gift. That's funny. I don't know if it was customized.
Huh.
Yeah. I love it. I actually like the shit. That could be a whole conversation. The shape of the mug.
Oh my God. I feel like that's the older I get.
Oh
like my grandmother would only drink tea in glass. And I only want tea in glass now. And my mug has to be particular.
Oh my God. Okay, so it's the whole thing. I got to tell this story. I so wish my sister was on this call. So I just spent a week and a half with my sis. And so she's always reheating her coffee, especially since the kids are little, right? You put your coffee down, then all of a sudden you're like, my coffee's cold. It's a whole thing. So it probably gets reheated 10 times. I'm sure that's good for all of us in the microwave. But anyway, so when she leaves her house, she takes the mug and like this mug and either puts it like on the dashboard or like in the seat next to her or like, I'm like, this is super dangerous, right? Like, what? I mean, you hit the brakes hot. Like, one, it's going to go flying everywhere. It's hot. It's ceramic.
It's the McDonald's story. It's that woman in McDonald's, right? Like having a glass. Yeah.
It's so true.
And it doesn't happen to her that it falls on her all the time?
Well, so we were talking about what would be the mug. So we kept looking for mugs. I'm like, oh no, that won't work because then if you have to reheat, you can't reheat in that. That's not, and then you're gonna have to switch. You're not doing that. So like there were so many conversations. Ironically, I had a bag of things that I did not take with me because they wouldn't fit in my suitcase. And one of them would have been the perfect mug. So now I have to mail it to her.
Yeah.
Right. You can microwave it. It had a lid. It'll fit in the cup holder and it has a handle. So it meets all of the criteria.
Nice.
Anyway, yes.
Okay. So we're going to talk about today the topic of high school. So we're spending a lot of time planning this really wonderful college summit. And as we're reading about it and making sure we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, it's so clear that we have to get away from high school being the feeder to college because that's 4 years of our kids' lives. And so the question is like, how did you do it in your house, Steph? And if I think back on my house, I probably had from oldest to youngest very different approaches to this. So were you like a house that was focused on freshman year on college?
No. And I have to say, I also had the gift of raising even my first high schooler through the your teen lens. We had already been doing this for 3 years and 1,000% that was a factor. Like hands down, it would have been completely different. I know it because I had heard enough that I knew, and you and I talk, frankly, I mean, because I say this all the time, Sue, like my fourthborn, I'm sorry, I don't have a fourthborn. Your fourthborn and my firstborn line up in age. So you were already on your fourth time. I was on my first time. So you were a very good role model where I remember saying to you, I don't know if you remember it as clearly as I do, where I was feeling very, very insecure about like what was going on around me. I'm watching everybody and what their kids were doing. And I'm like, okay, do I have this all wrong? Like, are we doing it wrong? And you said very eloquently, you said, depends what your end game is. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? You're like, if your end game is to try and put them in the best position they can to go to an Ivy League, first, whatever it is, yeah, maybe you should rethink your game. If your end goal is to rate, and these are not mutually exclusive, so I don't want to be misconstrued here. It depending on where your values lie was what you were saying to me. So you got to decide what your values are and act accordingly. And I remember it being like a wake-up call for me that I realized while it's important, education's important in our family, doing a good job, putting forth effort. I think that's where I was feeling that I think where that insecurity was coming into play was because I guess I'm not finding the right words. I don't believe that college is It's funny. It's called Destination College. I don't believe that college is the end game. In our family, it wasn't. It was another step along the way, right? But I never thought we were that. And that conversation with you helped me realize that. And so I remember many conversations with the kids about, don't do that. Only do that if that's something that you want to do. Like, there's no like, yeah, that'll look good on my resume, or I was like, that's not a game we play over here. Like, you do it because it has meaning for you and you think you're going to learn or whatever. But again, I'm going to credit that 1,000% to the company and to you, because I had kind of like that voice of rationale to help me.
So I think what?
Is that fair? Is that a fair, or am I rewriting it?
I think that the real message that we always try to send, and that I learned in my family, was that both things are true. So when you start thinking about college, it's healthy to sit back with you and your kids, and if you have a partner, what are your goals?
Mm-hmm.
Because it happens all the time that we are driven by what's happening around us, and an anxiety around us that we might buy into or we might not, and neither one's right or wrong. It's just really a question of like, what's your end game. So for some people, a particular school feels like the win, and I would still argue that's a hard one to have, because you can't control that outcome. But that would set in motion, like, one of the things I was reading this morning is paying attention to the courses you're taking, because you might want to stop taking the foreign language after 3 years because that's all your school requires and all your state requires. But some of the colleges you're thinking about, or you may be thinking about, require 4.
Mm-hmm.
So those things, like ticking boxes of what, you don't want to diminish your opportunities before you've even considered them. So there's always this straddling of two worlds of like, don't play oboe if you love piano.
Right.
Because that's always like the joke. Which instrument is the school looking for that year? And you could pick oboe, but they took the oboe player last year, and this year they want the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But even still, if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. That seems like a shame. And we've had kids write articles for us where they drove themselves. It wasn't even family driven.
Oh, no, for sure.
They said, I can't stop debate because that will look bad on my application. And, I don't know. I mean, we're going to find out whether it would look bad or not to admissions when we go through. I think that's week 7, when we're going to find out what happens when admissions officers are taking a peek.
Yeah.
And maybe they're going to say, yeah, we note that. But I would say, well, then don't stick with it and don't go to that school, right? Like, there's another school that you dropped it. So hopefully being your authentic self in high school leads to the perfect pick for you. Maybe not the one you thought was the right place, but maybe it turns out to be that it is the right place because they had the same priorities as you. We want kids coming to us, like a big thing right now is, how deep do you go in an activity versus how well-rounded are you? So when I was growing up, well-rounded was a good thing. And today there's a lot of conversation about showing that you're deeply invested in something. And, I'm sure there's schools out there that love the well-rounded child, Yeah.
So it's interesting. You took the words out of my mouth on the authenticity piece. And I was listening to our podcast with Kelly Corrigan, and she tells the story of how she wanted to go to, I think it was UVA, because it was like the brand she knew, right? And in the end, she ended up at the University of Richmond, which she said, oh my God, it was so much better for me. And pick any 2 schools, it doesn't matter what they are. It was so much better for me because the classes were smaller and, all of these pieces. And she's like, but I didn't even know that. And I think it's funny. I was thinking back to each kid going through the process, and we just had one. I was senior this year, right? So we've been in it really recently. And especially with our middle one, with Ethan, I remember reading, maybe it was his essay. There was something. And my joke to my husband was, do you remember when we were little and we had those books that were scratch and sniff? Like the berries, and you'd scratch them and it smelled like berries.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, if any admissions officer would like scratch and sniff his stuff, it's so authentically him. Do you know what I mean? And I remember feeling like, Now it's in somebody else's hands because this is who he is. So take him, don't take him because he's the right fit or not the right fit. You're going to do him a favor if you can really smell this this application. And maybe that's what we're going for. Maybe that's really what it is, just how do I show them? It's funny. I just had someone ask me, they had me reviewing an application for something on their website and they asked for my opinion. And I said, I don't know how you asked this, but maybe the question is something like, what didn't we ask you that when we get done reading this, you feel like, wow, and I used to tell my kids this, if there's something in your college application, if you feel like you don't really know Lane Silverman, if you don't know this about me, then you've got to figure out a way to tell that. Because if you feel like, wow, they don't really know me, well, then you missed a piece of who you are. And I always think that's a great question because it's the question we didn't ask, right? And I think that's a really powerful one to see what a kid would come forward with. Frankly, I think it's a powerful one for adults too.
I think that when we get to the college essay, the application offers many opportunities for you to tell who you are. That's their goal. So if you've gotten through the whole application and you haven't done it, you haven't done a great job of answering all the questions. You should go back and figure out where in there you put yourself. Yeah. But again, I just want to highlight how much of this conversation is about your family's priorities and your child's priority as it fits in with your family priorities. So we don't have any hard and fast rules. We have a whole lot of information and we have opinions on things. And at the end of the day, you're going to sit down and you're going to do that exercise, which maybe you'd never thought about before. What are our family goals? Like that question of how do we see college fitting in? Does it fit in at all? And if we say yes to that, how does it fit in? And what is there a search for intellectual curiosity? And that's our only goal. Is it to get a job afterwards? All of those questions and answers are going to dictate how you move forward. And I think it took us a few kids to get to that point. With college. I also think the landscape for college changed and certainly the price changed so much that you have to ask different questions. But anyway, as we've told you every week for the last several weeks, this program is starting Tuesday night. We will put in the comments the link to sign up. I'm going to do that right now. And today is yesterday was buy one, get one free. We're going to run that offer again Sunday night if anybody wants to do that, buy one, get one free. But today I think is a 20% off. And so you should check that out on Facebook. It's going to get posted soon. I will put it in the event post. So if you subscribe today, I wish I knew what the coupon was. I don't know what the code is. But here's the link. And we have a deal every day until the program starts Tuesday night. So pay attention on all our social media channels where we're announcing those each day. If you've got a kid in high school, we hope to see you there. Thanks so much. And everybody have a great weekend.
Bye, guys.